So my friend Brad over at riggingdojo.com sent me this very cool tool that Mauro Lopez developed. So he has it here on his LinkedIn page. And I have it here on this arm. So I'm just using the joint rotations on my arm to drive these little muscle joints that I have added into my skin cluster. And the cool thing is it takes into account several drivers. So just like a true RBF node would, but I think the setup here is a little bit easier. You're not worrying about interpolation between poses and things like that. It just seems like a cooler workflow. So same thing. You can have all this pose data in here and you get some pretty cool results. So let's dive in and see what it takes to get this to work. The first thing we're going to want to do is clone the repository. So you could either do that here and you could clone it, or you could just download a zip of it. I used my GitHub desktop to clone it, but you could do it. You could just download a zip of the repo as well. And then you're going to want to drop that in your Maya scripts directory. Now there's a bit of an overview on this page with some examples with how to use the tool. One thing that we're going to need to do is install, there's a couple of dependencies. So we're going to need to install NumPy and also this scikit-learn. So the way we're going to do that is we're going to go into our command prompt. I'm on Windows. And then I'm using Maya 2024. So we're going to get into our Autodesk Maya 2024 bin directory. It's C, program files, Autodesk, in my case, Maya 2024 bin. So let's cd into that directory. And then we're going to run myapy-m pip install, and then we'll do NumPy. And then you're going to want to do the same thing with that scikit-learn. So let's do that. The next thing you're going to want to do is pop open your favorite Python editor. I like to use PyCharm. And we're going to want to open up the project, the ML example nodes project. And then there's a few things we have to just update really quick. Under UI, if you go to regression win.py, you're gonna wanna open that up. And then on these import statements, when you first bring this in, it just has import imp, which is an older import library. It would look like this. So you just need to change that to import lib like that. So you would wanna change that on this first line, and then you're going to want to update that here as well, where it'll say imp.reload, but you want to change that to import lib.reload. For this project, I'm using a model that I got from 3dscanstore.com, and it's this cool Hulk model. You could find that if you go to 3D Store under characters, realistic, and they call it big guy. And if you want to get this, I do have a coupon code that you can use to purchase this. The coupon code is just my first initial J, my last name Brodsky, so JBRODSKY, and then you could get, I think 30% off of this. So unless there's another sale happening, but I'll post that in the description as well. It's a pretty badass asset. Another thing I'm going to use is NG Skin Tools just to layer in the muscle joints on top of the base layer deformations. All right, so let's get into it. What I have here is my model with the MGear template in there with a base layer skin deformations on it. So there's no muscle deformation. It's just like a kind of a base, kind of rubbery looking skin cluster. So let's add some joints so we could get some cool muscle deformation going on here. And we'll drive that with the ML node. Here's what I'm thinking. If we take the grease pencil tool, we need to control maybe an inner upper and inner lower bicep and an outer upper and an outer lower bicep. And maybe a brachioradialis joint over here, probably an elbow joint somewhere over here. We have this first joint we created. Let's go ahead and place that. And I'm just gonna snap the vertex just to kind of get this placed quickly. And let's turn on the orientations on these joints. So let's do transform display, local rotation axes. Orient this to somewhat reflect the normal of the surface. So kind of Y pointing up and Z pointing out the normal. And then Let's duplicate that. We'll put one on that lower bicep. And we'll do that again for the outer lower bicep over here. And then we'll duplicate that again. For the outer upper. Let's go ahead and name these. So we'll name this lower one here. Let's do bicep in, low, and we'll just do left. This one be bicep out, low, left, bicep out, up, left. And we forgot that first one. Bicep in, geez, can't type today, up, left. Cool, so we'll save this. All right, so we have a rough placement for those bicep joints. And let's go ahead and parent them to the appropriate twist joints. So I'm going to just take these top ones, parent them to that first twist joint there. Same thing with the lower ones. I'll parent them to this twist joint. And let's get that brachyradialis joint in there I was talking about, because I think that could help as well. So I'll duplicate this joint and I'll just move that over there. We'll just rotate this one a little bit. I'll put this more in the middle of that muscle. All right, let's just do one more for the elbow. I'm not going to worry about the triceps for right now. Let's duplicate that one more time. Bring this over to the elbow. And let's go ahead and rotate and orient that joint. All right, so I think that's pretty good for this. And then we'll parent, trying to think if I want to parent this to the twist joint or to the actual elbow joint itself, the lower arm joint. Let's parent it to the lower arm joint. That's what seems to make sense. All right, so let's add these to the skin cluster. So let's grab these guys, select our skin, edit influences, add influence, and then we'll just make sure you use geometries turned off. I don't worry about the lock weight stuff because we're using NG skin tools for this, but we'll go ahead and hit apply. Then I'll grab NG skin tools and I'll show you what I have set up in here. So I have just a few layers. I have the spine on a layer, and here's the mask for that. It's just the base layer, so there's no mask. Then I have my legs. And the mask for that is this, and then similar for the arms. And there's my mask, and then the hands. So you can see the hands go up a little bit, then I have a mask that I use to control the fall off for that. So now we just need a layer to add in these muscle joints. So let's do, we'll do right click, create layer. Let's call these upper arm left, or bicep left, let's say. Cool, let's turn on, we'll turn off use influences only so we can see everything, and then we could just type in bicep, elbow. Did I rename that one? I think I forgot to rename it. Let's double check. Nope, I forgot to name that one, so that'll be elbow. Let's just call this elbow left. Put a capital E just to keep things consistent. All right, so go back into here. So now we have our bicep. Oh, I need to rename that brachy. Let's rename this one as well. I don't even know if I spelled that right, but whatever, it'll work. Okay, so we got all these joints here. So now we could go ahead and just select them all and then go to tools and assign from closest joint. Let's do selected influences only. We'll click that. So that gives us this really rough weight map that looks kind of like this. But what I typically normally do would just go to smooth and then just kind of smooth the hell out of it. So I start to see like a solid color disappear, like how this blue just kind of went away. Now we just have a blend of colors. So I'll leave it at that for right now. And then we could just come in and test out these joints as well. So we could just grab one and see what kind of deformation it's giving across that muscle. The next thing we need to do is paint that mask. So we could grab the geometry. We could turn off that filter. Let's do view selected, use influences only. and go to mask. And let's go to paint. So now we'll just paint in that biceps muscle. We'll just hit replace with a value of 1. And I'm just going to kind of paint the whole muscle close to the edge. And then we'll smooth it out, and that should probably give us what we want. And then we'll just bleed this over into that brachioradialis muscle. And then we'll put in a little bit of love for that elbow. Right there. And then let's just smooth this, and then we'll see what we get. All right. So now if I grab one of these guys, I could just kind of yank it around and we get some deformation happening. Cool, so let's go ahead and save that. So let's load up the tool. So I'm gonna go into my Python editor. First thing you're gonna wanna do is import your sys for systems, and you wanna append your systems path to reflect wherever you put that tool. I put mine in my scripts directory, but because it's in a subdirectory, Maya doesn't pick it up. So you just have to, I'll show you where mine is at actually. So if I go to documents, Maya, and I go to scripts, then I have ML example, and then inside there I have my ML example nodes. And I had to put it in this subdirectory because I couldn't just drop it in my scripts directory because of the way I'm using GitHub. But if you did put it directly in your scripts directory, like if you just downloaded the zip and then drop this ML example into your scripts directory, you probably don't have to append the systems path, but your Python path. But this is how you would do that. So I just import sys.path.append, and then you put the path. You have to use these extra forward slashes because if you just have a regular, or a backslash, I guess you call it, this escapes out of the string. So you have to double those up so you don't escape out of the string. So that's the path that I'm appending to my systems path. And then we're gonna run import nodes underscore UI. And then we'll run this nodes underscore UI dot regression underscore UI. We'll call that. And this brings up this cool little UI here that we put on our input attributes and our target attributes, and then we train the ML model. But let's go ahead and throw some animation onto this arm, and then we'll pose, in the animation, we'll pose those muscle joints, and then we'll use this to train the ML model so it'll just work with the rig without any animation on those joints. So let's do some bicep flex, and let's take the wrist and the shoulder into consideration when we do this. So let's just grab all 3 of these, and let's throw a key on frame 0, and then maybe I'll go like to frame 5, and let's just do a bicep flex, just the neutral pose right here. So maybe I'll do something like this. Maybe frame 10, we'll stretch it out, we'll kind of lock that out. And then let's go up to, let's go to 15, and then I'll bring up the shoulder. Actually, let's just rotate the shoulder. Like he's gonna make a muscle, you know? So like to show off to his friends, his Hulk friends. So yeah, I'll just rotate that shoulder negative 100 or so and rotate X. And then we'll bring this up again. Let's key that. And then let's go to frame, did that take anything? Oops, I forgot to key the other control. So let's rotate this again. Let's pose this. All right, so let's key those 3 controls, wrist, elbow, and shoulder. We'll key those. I think I might have forgot that on. Yes, I did. I'm not much of an animator, but I forgot to key the shoulder and the wrist on frame 5 and frame 10. So to fix that, All right. So we have some basic bicep flex, and then we're twisting that shoulder, getting a bicep flex. Let's actually delay that bicep flex there for a second. So let's leave that like that. We'll key this, expand our time slider a little bit. Let's go to 20, and then we'll flex that bicep there. And let's also key the wrist and the shoulder so we don't have that same problem again. So now we'll pose the wrist to get that cool bicep flex happening. So let's go to frame 25. Let's rotate this in. And the wrist deformation is a little bit funky, but we're not going to worry about that at the moment. Let's just rotate that in. Let's grab all the 3 controllers again. Key that, and then let's go to 30, and we'll rotate this out. Something like that. We'll key that, and let's grab again the elbow, key that, and the shoulder. All right, so let's look at this beautiful animation. So we're going to use this to train our poses for the muscle joints. Now there is a function here, I haven't tried it, to generate random animation, but I'm not sure how that works, and I'd hate to have to try to create the poses for the muscle joints based off some kind of random animation. I'd rather have something that's going to be in the range of motion we're actually going to use. So that's why I'm kind of opting to create our own training animation. All right, so let's save this. So let's load in the joints that we want to control this model with. So we'll do our upper arm, our lower arm, and our wrist. So let's add those in. Oh yeah, let's highlight in the channel box the attributes we're gonna want to use. So we're just gonna use rotation. We're not worrying about translation at the moment. So let's click add. So we have our hand, lower arm, and upper arm rotate X, Y, and Z, all driving this model. And then let's load in our muscle joints. So let's grab them. And the elbow. And same thing, but let's go ahead and add translate, because we're obviously going to want to translate these guys around, and I'm not sure if we're going to want to rotate them, but might as well have that in there as well. So let's add that. We have a boatload of attributes that we're driving here. And then before we train this, we actually need to animate those joints. So I'm just going to leave this as is. I'm going to move it out of the way. And let's just go through our animation. So 0 is neutral. Let's go to frame 5. And then I'm just going to, oh yeah, we need to set keyframes on those guys. So let's grab their joints. Let's set a keyframe on 0, go to 5. And I'm just going to create a quick select set. So sets, quick select set, muscle joints, let's call it. Cool, so let's go ahead and pose these. Let's grab that elbow joint and fix that elbow up a little bit. And maybe the weighting's not the best on that, but we can adjust that after. All right, so we'll just key that elbow, and then we'll just grab this biceps brachioradialis. Let's bring that out a little bit like this. We'll key that. Let's do our bicep inner lower. And we'll do the same thing with the bicep inner outer or upper. And the bicep outer upper. And lastly, let's grab that lower one. And we'll just do something like this. Let's see. And it's not perfect, but we're kind of doing a rush job here. I just want to really just test out this tool and see how it works. Let's maybe bring this one forward a little bit. All right, that looks kind of beefy. So let's grab those again. So we'll go down to our set, muscle joints, and let's do select set members. And we'll just set a key at frame 5. So we get a little preview of what that could look like. And then let's go to frame 10. So I'm just going to copy my neutral pose to frame 10. So I'm going to go to 0, middle mouse drag the time slider, and then key these again at 10. Except for that elbow, let's maybe just tweak that elbow a little bit. I don't know, just to tweak it. Let's go to 16 here. Or I'm sorry, 15. And let's reshape this twist a little bit. So we're just gonna make this look a little bit better. A little bit more natural. And we'll fix this little twisted portion there. And we do have the ability to rotate these, so we can rotate that a little bit and kind of untwist that. Get that out a little bit maybe. I don't know, it's looking a little bit funky, but maybe not so much twist. Maybe we'll pull this one out a little bit. Looking a little bit too flexed, but I think we'll go with that just for now. Let's select those muscle joints again. So I'll right click on my selection set that I made, select set members. We'll hit a keyframe there. Let's go to 20. So now we could get like this cool bicep shape that we're going after. So let's grab let's try to get some sort of flexed shape out of this. We want to pick up some of this and bring it up. This is like a neutral wrist position, so you're going to want kind of like that middle, like not too much of a peak, but let's see, something maybe like that. Let's grab that biceps breaky and bring that out and up a little bit. Now, typically you'd have more of these joints throughout this thing. We're just kind of using a limited number here. So the forearm isn't looking super ideal, but let's see here. All right, I think that looks a little bit better. Maybe a little bit more volume coming out this way. All right, so let's go ahead and record a keyframe at 20. And let's go to 25. And then, so here's where we're gonna want that like really sharp peak on the biceps. So we'll actually bring in these upper ones a little bit, maybe a little bit like that. Get that sharper Arnold Schwarzenegger peak happening. Peak and bulge. Where is that lower one? Here we go. All right, something maybe like this, and then, yeah, you know, this whole area over here is just kind of jacked up, but we'll just kind of leave that as it is for right now. All right, so let's grab all of our joints, our muscle joints, and let's make a key at 25, and then let's go to 30. That wrist comes out. And maybe we'll have to adjust 25 if that looks a little bit too silly, but let's copy our keys from 20 and put them at 30. And then we'll just make adjustments. So on 30, we want this area closer to the forearm to have a little bit more volume, maybe something like that. And the upper bicep joints, we'll kind of flatten those out a little bit. It's getting a little bit crazy behind here, but we'll just kind of ignore and pretend like this isn't happening for right now for this demo. Let's grab our muscle joints, and then we'll select the set members, and we'll set that key. So let's just run through this animation and see what we got going on here. Yeah, I think we need to adjust 25. Let's dial that back a little bit. It's just a little bit too crazy, even for the Hulk. Maybe we'll bring these into the center a little bit more. And I forgot to check the elbow on these, so we'll go back and do that as well. So let's select these joints, set the key on this. Still want to adjust this guy a little bit. Let's keep this lower volume with these inner joints. Maybe rotate this. That looks cooler. And then we'll create more of that peak with the outer joints as much as possible. Okay, so let's key that. Got something going on there. It's not super perfect, but at least good enough for this demo. All right, so let's go ahead and train based off of this animation. So I'm going to save my scene. We already have our drivers loaded in and our target attributes loaded in. I'm going to leave all this stuff at default. I'm not going to duplicate this node for debugging purposes. We're just going to use current animation. I'm just going to leave everything default and hit train. So let's go ahead and do that. So it's loading the plugin. Hit allow. And I think that's it. Let's see. If we grab one of our joints, we should have... No, it didn't do anything. Let's try that again. Nothing's happening. Let's look at the script editor for output. Min.arg is an empty sequence. Okay. I think it's because there's no keyframed animation on these actual driver joints. The keyframed animation is actually on... Let's try passing in the actual controls themselves. So let's clear the drivers. We'll add in just the rotate for these controls. The only thing bad about this is that it won't work with IK. Obviously, we want it to work based off the deformation joints. So it's kind of a bummer at the moment that you have to use the controls. So let's train based off the control animation instead of the joints. Let's hit that. All right, so that seemed to work. Sorry, it took me a few minutes of tripping over my own feet to try to figure that out. But all right, so let's see what we have. We have our deformation muscle joints. Now they have an input. Let's just grab one and graph it. So let's go to Windows, Node Editor, graph the inputs. Oh boy. So we have this regression node that has the ML trained model, I guess, data within that's driving the rotate and translate of our muscle joints. And then we still have animation on scale and visibility. We could simply just grab these joints and delete that animation since it's no longer needed. So we could still, the controls still have animation on them, but these muscle joints don't. They just have that ML data driving, the ML node driving their position and rotation. So now if we play the animation, we still have our cool muscle motion happening, but they're not being driven by animation. They're being driven by the ML node itself. So let's just play around with this for a second. So if I just grab these controls and start, using them in real time, we could see how this node is kind of working. So we got this, we have our rotate on our shoulder. So we're getting like a nicer deformation there. Then we have our wrist, which we could do our little fun muscle flexing thing happening there. Cool. So I think a way to fix this would be to just put on the UI itself. Let me grab that. I think I closed it. A way to fix that would be to put just a start and end animation frame, or just get current frame range, that kind of thing, instead of getting it based off the input attributes themselves. That way you could use something else to train the model with instead of what your animation's on per se. Because in this case, we're using deformation joints that are driven by those controls, but they're not animated themselves. So that's just the little issue we're running into there. Other than that, I think it's a pretty cool tool. And the next thing would be, aside from figuring that stuff out, would be how would you include this in your character rigging pipeline? Like, how would you export this data? How would you import it into like a MGear build, that sort of thing? And I think the way you'd probably do that would be to just export the node. So if I just went to the node editor and simply, I think if I were to detach this, let's take a look at the connections here. So you would probably get all the input connections and output connections for this node. You'd probably want to save out this node, and then after your build, you'd want to import that node back in and rehook up these connections. And that's probably all you would need to do to automate this into a character rig build. All right, let me know your thoughts. I think this is a pretty cool tool. If you have any questions, definitely hit up Mauro. He seems like a really cool guy. And I think it's awesome that he took the time to put this together and put that out there for everyone to see. A lot of work went into this, and I think it's super cool that he's sharing it with everybody. So definitely check it out and shoot him some props. All right, thanks a lot.